Are you okay? Are you okay? What happened? I hit my head. Okay, well, let's do concussion protocol. How many fingers am I holding up? 2. 2.
1.
Okay. Are you feeling dizzy at all? No? All right, get back out there. You're good.
So I was at soccer yesterday, and I got hit in the head really hard, and I'm really having headaches and stuff, but my athletic trainer just let me run back on the field.
So this was a little scene I just kind of put together about negligence, and it showed negligence through the return to play aspect of soccer, or like just any sport. It showed that the athlete got hit in the head, was knocked down, looked like she was out for a little bit, and then the athletic trainer came running over and asked her if she was okay. Did a couple tests, didn't really do much for her, and then just sent her back out onto the field, and it didn't show the proper return to play protocol. That the athlete would normally be sitting out after an incident like that, and then they would wait for the next day to see if they have symptoms that arise. This athlete just was thrown back into the game, and then days later, day after, she was realizing that she had symptoms still, and that the athletic trainer wasn't doing anything for her, and she just threw her back into the game, didn't contact her afterwards or anything, and that can be negligent, and the player could in the future have a lawsuit against her because she didn't do the proper return to play protocol. Negligence is failing to do something that a reasonable, prudent, and up-to-date person would have done under the same or similar circumstances, or it's doing something that a reasonable, prudent person and up-to-date person wouldn't have done under the circumstances. Many things go into proving negligence. So you have to prove the following elements just to even have a claim for negligence. You have to prove duty. So did this person have a duty to you to perform these acts, such as like a coach at a practice, making sure his or her athletes are safe, and supervising them. And then you have to prove the breach. So was there error or omission that forms the basis of this complaint? So did the defendant actually fail to act under reasonable circumstances? Loss, so what did this breach cause you to lose, or like what damages happened? And then proximate cause, so this is where you have to prove that this injury was actually caused by the negligent act. So negligence has to be proven through all of these elements to be able to have a successful negligence claim in court. Instances that can be considered negligent would be an automobile collision, medical malpractice, workplace accidents, or defective products. But like I said, you have to prove those 4 elements before. And the book talks about 2 different levels of negligence. You have ordinary versus gross negligence. Ordinary is kind of what I talked about a little bit before, is just where would a reasonable person or ordinary person use, did they act? Did they act in the similar circumstances that would have normally occurred? And then gross negligence is when you have a legal duty to act and you fail to do so. There are many different defenses that you could use when arguing a negligence claim. So if you're the defendant, you could use any of these claims depending on how they suit the case. Obviously not all of them are going to work for every single case, but you could use governmental immunity, volunteer immunity statutes, Good Samaritan laws, releases, waivers, primary and secondary assumption of risk, participation agreement, open and obvious, and then the act of God. Okay, so for my negligence cases, I did one case that showed that proved negligence, and then one case that failed to prove negligence. So for my first case, I did Olsen versus the Major League Baseball. This was a class action by fantasy sports players against the MLB and the MLB Advanced Media and the Boston Red Sox and the Houston Astros. The plaintiffs asserted various fraud, negligence, unjust enrichment, and consumer protection law claims based on alleged harm caused by the defendant's representation and conduct surrounding the known cheating scandal that happened. These allegations arose from the plaintiffs that had contracts with DraftKings. The main complaint by the plaintiffs was that the defendants were aware that there was sign stealing by the Astros and the Sox, but intentionally took no action to stop it in order to protect their financial interest and their investment within DraftKings. So during this case, the plaintiffs tried to prove fraud, negligence, and many other things. But I focused on the negligence part of the suit. During their claims of negligence, first they started arguing that the defendants deceived the plaintiffs by failing to disclose the existence of the sign stealing schemes, and this made the stats that the contests were based on illegitimate and unreliable. Even though they had this claim and they said that this was the breach, the court denied it because they said that they didn't identify the duty. So they didn't define how the MLB was in charge, or like how they had an active duty to enforce or like let the people know about this information. They also argued that the MLB had a duty to inform the people to know of the cheating scandal because it could have affected the decision to enter the contest. The court said that the business transaction, they didn't have a part in it, so the court didn't support this idea of duty that the MLB had. So overall, this case just showed that they weren't able to prove the 4 elements to be able to have a case that would uphold in court. And the court ended up dismissing the case and granted the defendant's motion to dismiss it. The next case I read about was Ben Collett versus Gary Smith in Middlesbrough FC. The plaintiff, Collett, played for Manchester United in a match against Middlesbrough, and in the course of the game, Collett was tackled by the first defender of Middlesbrough, and the tackle was high and over the ball, and as a result, Collett sustained a fracture of the tibia and fibula in his right leg. So he pursued damages for injury, a loss, and then the damage caused by the negligence of the tackle. Collett didn't actually go after Smith. He decided to go after the club itself. So he pursued that Middlesbrough was liable for Gary Smith because he was an employee of Middlesbrough. So he argued that Middlesbrough was liable for the actions of their player and that he was negligent in the course of tackling him in particular. So Collett also argued for future loss, so that's how he proved damages, so that's how he proved his loss. And then, because he wasn't going to be able to earn more money in the end because his career was basically over after that. I mean, once you break a tibia and a fibula, it's pretty hard to recover from that. And then in the end, Middlesbrough admitted that they were liable, and then the court decided upon a settlement figure, and it included over $4 million.